Hey gang, welcome back to the Night Shift. It's Clint here, and I read all the UFO news so that you don't have to, because let's be honest, we all have shit to do. And this thing is bonkers. It's crazy, right? There's like UFOs, there's anti-gravity, there's time travel, there's aliens, there's Galactic Federation, there's, we've got whistleblowers, we've got the military-industrial complex, we've got, you name it. I mean, it's crazy, right? So how do we keep track of it all? I do it for you so that you don't have to. So that's what we do here on the Night Shift, and that's why I'm here. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of the channel, part of the conversation. It's been an awesome year. This year, so many things have happened, and I'm going to put out a video today that's a little bit different than what I normally do. Normally, I do 1 or 2 videos a week, and those videos usually go down something like this. I spend the week before absorbing all the news, making notes, analyzing the stories, trying to figure out what's relevant, what's interesting, what I want to talk about. Monday, I have to put it all aside. Just focus on life stuff, family things, just shit to do. Tuesday, I start putting my outline together for what I'm going to talk about that week. By Wednesday, I'm having a low-grade anxiety attack. By Thursday morning, it's a full-blown panic attack, and then usually 2 pots of coffee into the day, I sit down and I flesh out an outline for that day's show. Thursday afternoon, I put my outline together, I make the episode, I edit it Thursday night, and I post it Thursday night or Friday morning. It's a chaotic process. It's entirely too stressful and unsustainable for a long stretch of time. So as you may have noticed, some of my content is a little clunky, and that's because I'm trying to figure out exactly what type of content works best for this channel, for this audience, for this conversation. So as I develop the channel and as it continues to grow, I'm going to be experimenting a little bit more with different content. And one of the things I'm thinking about doing is a live stream once a week where we can kind of just get together in a safe place, safe space for talking about UFOs. UFO nerd time. We can just get together and share stories, talk about what's going on. I was always really fascinated by the call-ins on Coast to Coast AM, and I want to do something similar, and I feel like a live stream once a week might have that same kind of a vibe. So if you're interested in that, let me know in the comments. I'd be really interested to know what you think about that idea. Some other news. The channel has doubled in size in just the last 10 days. It's been amazing. Thank you to everybody who's joined. If you've subscribed to the channel, liked a video, made a comment, left an inspiring or encouraging remark, I really do appreciate it. Every single one of you that has said something kind and encouraging, you have no idea how much that means to me. It is such a heavy lift, as I often say, to do this every single week. I have a family, I have another life outside of this thing, and I have other responsibilities. And this is just purely a passion project for me. I do it all by myself. I'm a one-man show, and I'm doing it all on a 13-inch MacBook Air. So like I have carpal tunnel syndrome. My eyes are going. I'm staring at this teeny tiny screen. I might as well be doing this every week from a phone. It's like very difficult to do this on a small screen. So one of my first goals as the channel continues to grow is actually to upgrade to a bigger screen so I can see what it is that I'm doing. Which is why I'm excited to tell you about a new update. The channel finally crossed the threshold where I can monetize the channel a little bit, and I can activate channel memberships. So you can support the work that I'm doing by joining the channel. It's $2.99 for the basic tier membership. And you can become a member of the channel, support my work. It helps me out. I really do appreciate it. If that's something that interests you, and if you can, I would love it. If you can't, I understand. Sometimes we just have other things that we need to focus on, but just being here is enough. So thank you for being here. A couple of quick shout outs. Steve Music, you're awesome. Paterfamilias, thank you for being here. Now, if I butcher these, forgive me. Torgny Afro, New York Safro. I know, my place looks like a Lithuanian library. That's actually because it's based on an actual library in Lithuania that I used as design inspiration for this office. So I'm working on that, trying to figure that out, but hopefully we'll change up the set when I get some more funds. Sholto de Puma, Prickly G, you know who you are. Anthony Haley, thank you. You are awesome. Junk Noodles, you're the best. WN553, The Crazy Israel, I'm the Yanni of UFO podcasts. That's what they say. That's what they tell me. Live at the Acropolis. That's what we're here for. I was always more of a John Tesh guy, but Yanni's all right too. Ben from Brilliant Side, thank you. This actually might turn into a real podcast. I don't know, but for now, YouTube channel seems to be the best place for it. P Baloo 01, thank you, and Strawberry Stranger. You guys have been awesome, and you've just been very encouraging, very supportive. Thank you for being here. So channels doubled in size. Memberships are open. I'm working on some new kinds of content. I'm considering the live stream. End of the year recap. This has been a crazy year. David Grush exploded onto the scene, dropped some super major bombs on all of us. The conversation blew wide open. This thing went parabolic in 2023. We got the Schumer Amendment, the Senate Majority Leader putting forth legislation that was actually approved by the president, passed through the Senate, bipartisan legislation for the first time, saying in actual writing, in official government legislation, that UAPs are real, non-human intelligence is something we need to look into, and we need to go after the military-industrial complex for keeping all this stuff locked up away from us. So it's been a big year. The Schumer Amendment did get stripped of some of its enforcement language, so a lot of the teeth have been removed from it. But according to superstar attorney Daniel Sheehan, who I trust and I believe and I take at his word, 65% of what we wanted did get through. So yay us, go team, we made it through, 65%. According to Danny, who I hope to interview on this podcast, by the way, and I've reached out to his office and we're talking about trying to set up a time. We'll see if that goes through. But according to Danny, we have 65% of what we wanted. We have a framework now, a skeleton that we can build on from here. So that actually, the language that made it through is what we wanted. We just didn't get the teeth. So it's up to us now to start making this thing a political issue. We got to start pushing on this, pushing your members of Congress. This needs to be a political issue at election time. We need to hear about this question on the debate stage during the presidential election. This needs to be a thing. We have to make it a thing. It's on us now. I know we all wanted just something to kind of come together, and the president just comes out on television and makes a statement, and it's all done for us and wrapped up with a nice little bow. But I'm afraid we're going to have to get our hands dirty. We're going to have to get out there, make some phone calls, send some emails, do some stuff, and show people that this is an issue. If a small group of people can get together and turn into a large group of people and literally shut down the entire government in this country, I think that it's possible for a small group of UFO enthusiasts to get together, become a large group of UFO enthusiasts, and apply pressure where needed to make things happen. Remember, it was only two congressmen, Mike Turner and Mike Rogers, who gutted the Schumer Amendment. It was only two, really, that made all that happen. So, as Lou Elizondo said, we now know where the incoming fire is coming from, and we know who is firing at us. We know the companies, at least some of them involved, Lockheed, Raytheon, Radiance Technologies, some others. But we have an idea. We're starting to get a fuller picture of what this actual conspiracy looks like, who are the players involved, and what it is that they're doing. And all of that happened in 2023. So as we wrap up this year and we start to move into 2024, we can expect to see more whistleblowers coming forward, more leaks, more information, and it looks like the powers that be have chosen the path of catastrophic disclosure. That was the big conversation that kind of ended the year. Will disclosure be controlled, or will it be catastrophic? If you weren't part of that conversation, you didn't catch up on that, the basic idea was there was a group of people pushing for what we call a controlled disclosure. This would have been the Schumer Amendment. That was the controlled disclosure. Disclosure made on a timeline, on a timetable, adhering to a schedule with clear mile markers along the way, overseen by a board of independent experts chosen by Congress, the disclosure panel. These guys would have come in and basically had full access to go into the secret research facilities and labs where all this work is being done. They would have had the power of eminent domain behind them, and they would have been able to seize the technology and actually bring it out for analysis by the civilian world. That language largely has been gutted, and now we are looking at what is called catastrophic disclosure. Catastrophic disclosure is a term that actually was chosen to scare the shit out of the people in the military industrial complex. The idea being that if you guys don't get on board with the Schumer Amendment, this is a way that we can do disclosure where you will get some immunity, we get disclosure, and everybody can walk away. They have chosen not to pursue that path. Now we choose the path of chaos. What is the path of chaos? The path of chaos is leaks. The trickle becomes a flood. 40 whistleblowers become 400 whistleblowers, and this thing just melts. It just falls apart because there's just not enough thread to hold the whole thing together anymore. We just start pulling it at knots until the whole thing unravels. They have chosen the path of catastrophe. So the catastrophic side of it is really for the folks on the inside keeping this whole thing secret. They're going to be wrapped up in lawsuits. There's going to be all kinds of litigation that's going to play itself out. Remember, these companies that are in charge of building weapons for the United States military, and they sell this shit all over the world. It's not just us. It's our whole empire. Everybody in NATO buys from us. Like our military contractors, it's a great business to be in because they're in the business of war. And have you noticed we're always at war? We're just fucking always at war. So those folks are now going to have this whole thing start to fall apart around them. And that is going to be chaotic. And how it all plays out, they've had 70 years to reverse engineer alien technology. We don't know what advances they've made. We don't know what breakthroughs they've made. And what does it mean if Lockheed Martin or Radiance Technologies or Northrop Grumman has been given a recovered disk? If the government, if your tax dollars paid for the United States military to go into a place, recover a flying saucer, and then they took that flying saucer and they hand it to Northrop Grumman. Northrop Grumman, who is a private company owned by shareholders, run by a board of directors with actual people. These people have names and addresses. They make money off of this shit. They take that disk and then they make leapfrog advances in technology that just jump way over the competition. Meanwhile, the competition is just trudging along on a standard line of research. Well, what does this look like when it all comes out and then these companies want to go to court over this and say, well, why did you decide that Northrop Grumman gets the crash disk and not so-and-so? There's going to be a lot of questions to answer around that topic as we go forward. And I think 2024 will begin the process of catastrophic disclosure that's going to play itself out. So that's going to be really interesting. I'm going to wrap up this video quickly with 5 questions that people have been asking me since I launched the channel. So I'm going to start with question number one, why did you start the channel? I started the channel because I realized in 2017 when Go Fast Gimbal, Tic Tac, the New York Times, Leslie Kean, Ralph Blumenthal articles, Lou Elizondo, To the Stars Academy, all of this stuff started happening. Just like the rest of you, I kind of like turned my attention to the UFO conversation. I had kind of put it in the rear view for a while, but I looked back at it and I realized that we were in some kind of a new critical moment where this was starting to just accelerate. And as it accelerated, I started to take it more and more seriously. And I found that I was just obsessed with it. I bought like every book. I have like behind my Lithuanian library back here. I was full of books on UFOs. And I just started to absorb it and it became my obsession. And as it became an obsession, I needed people to talk to about it. And I started talking to people. I'm like texting my neighbor, people at work. I'm like, I'm talking to my wife and friends and stuff. And they're just sick and tired of hearing about it. So I thought, I looked around at the field. I looked around at the space and I thought, you know what this world needs? One more middle-aged white guy with an unsolicited opinion about something on YouTube. That's what we need. So I found my niche and I thought I'd just slot right into that niche and ride the wave. So that's why I'm here. Question number 2. What's with the name? Night Shift. What does night shift mean? Well, I used to work years and years and years and years ago at a local cable access TV station. It was one of the best jobs I ever had. And I worked the night shift. And I was just a great group of people. And we always would have fantastic conversations about all kinds of things. And I just specifically remember having just warm interactions and wonderful conversations with just very fascinating people, all the people that would come to the studio. And at the end of the shift, every night when I'd wrap up, usually around midnight, I would leave to go home, and on my ride home, I would listen. I had a long drive home, and I would listen to Coast AM with Art Bell and later George Norrie, and I just loved that show. I fucking loved it, and I loved the UFOs. I loved the call-ins. I loved the whole thing, and I thought this is more interesting than anything on television. This is it, and I just felt so connected to it. I thought it was so interesting. I thought one day I'll do my own thing like that, and that's what this is. So this is the night shift. And also, I do a lot of the work on this at night. As I mentioned, I'm kind of a one-man band, so I have to find the hours in the day to make it happen. So a lot of it happens at night. So that's night shift. Question number 3. What do we actually know? There's so much misinformation, so much disinformation, so much just fan fiction bullshit out there. It's really hard to know what we know. Like, what do we actually know that's real? Like, what information can we count on? There's some stuff that we actually do know. There's actually a lot that we know, and the stuff that we know it because it's so common, and it's just sort of the foundational basis for everything else that we're talking about. It's just some stuff is just accepted. We know that UFOs, UAPs violate all known laws of physics. We've known that for a long time. They do things that we cannot do with our technology and our present understanding of physics. In order for them to do those things, they have to have there are a few requirements. You have to be able to control gravity. You have to have an unlimited source of energy or a nearly limitless source of energy. And if you can control gravity and you have a nearly limitless source of energy, then you can control time. Gravity and time are tied together. If we have control of gravity, we have control of time. We have control of momentum. We have control of energy. So we know that just from that, the technology itself, the actual nuts and bolts side of this thing, represents a quantum leap for our civilization. If we could crack it, even just a little bit, as we go, this would be a major, major, major step towards a utopia that we could actually build here on Earth, just like in Star Trek. Just like in Star Trek. In fact, I use Star Trek as a template for a lot of the way that I think about this, and I think Star Trek serves a very useful role in that purpose because it gives us a framework to think about a world that exists without money, without capitalism, without just all of the stupid bullshit that we use in our current world. So that we know those things. We know that most communication with non-human intelligence is telepathic. I have experienced this myself, which I'll get to in a moment. I have actually experienced this myself. We know that the fundamental basis for a lot of this stuff revolves around consciousness. Somewhere at the center of this whole mystery, consciousness plays a major, major role. And telepathy is a part of that. The way these beings seem to communicate with one another and with us is telepathic. We know this from thousands and thousands of accounts of contactees, abductees, experiencers having telepathic communication. People who have never had it before in their lives suddenly have it and they go, oh my God, what the was that? There are just too many accounts of this to ignore. There is something there. There's definitely a there. Telepathy plays a role. We know that there's more than one kind of alien life. We know of at least the Greys for sure. Everybody has talked about the Greys going all the way back to Betty and Barney Hill. That's a pretty common type. If there are humans and one other type of life out there, then there must be an infinite amount. It's not just us and one other. There have to be more. So from the just sheer volume of accounts that we have and reports that we have, we can be pretty confident that there are multiple varieties of aliens. Some say it's 4 or 5 different types. Some say it's as many as 50 or 60. We don't really know. I don't think anyone really knows. But we know that there's more than one for sure. I think that those 3 things you can basically like accept to be like 99% solid. The rest of it, we don't really know. I mean, we don't know what we don't know, and we don't know what evidence is locked up in classified research programs. We know that there are discs. We know that there are bodies. So we know that this thing has a realness to it. There's a tangibility to it. You could actually go up and put your hand on a disc. You can go inside of it and walk around. We know that there are pilots to these things. We know that the pilots communicate with the craft using some form of consciousness or telepathy, some type of interface between their consciousness and the craft. And we also have good, strong reason to believe that many of the craft, if not all of the craft, have some form of intelligence innately. Like the craft itself is actually some type of has some form of intelligence. Some call it artificial intelligence, a personality, whatever you want to call it. But we've heard that enough times now that there seems to be a there. So I would say that's probably about an 80% likelihood that that's real. So it's the conversation continues. We don't know how big it goes, but we do know that there are some really key core things that, if any of those things are true, and it looks like they are, that's pretty world changing. I mean, again, think of it like this whole conversation is enormous. So if even 10% of it's true, pick your 10%. Like, which 10% do you want to be true? Anti-gravity, time travel, aliens, telepathy, any 10% anywhere in there. Yeah. Where I think it gets completely murky and weird is when you start talking to people and they're like, oh, I flew one of these things. There's a secret space program and I'm a part of it, whatever. Like, some stuff is obviously fan fiction bullshit, but some of it's pretty solid. And when you hear Gary Nolan say something, you can pretty much take that to the bank. I mean, Gary Nolan, Avi Loeb, there are legitimate, real people looking at this now with extremely extremely credible people. The Soul Foundation that Gary Nolan started, the New Paradigm Institute, Danny Sheehan's New Paradigm Institute. We're just seeing a lot of that. We also know that the government has acknowledged that this stuff is real because the Schumer Amendment exists. This is legislation that was actually written and passed the Senate, bipartisan legislation approved by the office of the president, that for once finally says non-human intelligence, UAPs, UFOs, crash retrievals, all of this stuff is spelled out in the legislation, and that's real now. So we made a lot of progress, and in 2023, it's been a pretty exciting year. Question number 4, what's your background, and do you have any personal experiences? Well, my background actually is in production. That's why you see like all this apparatus that I have. Like, I actually have this from my day job as a production person. I'm a photographer. I'm a teacher. I do a lot of different things, but I've always been a student of reality and sort of just I've always been interested in why we do the things that we do the way that we do them. I mean, for most of my life, I look around at the world and I think this is just fucking crazy. Like, why do we do things this way? It doesn't make any sense. Our whole society, it just makes no sense. People spend their entire lives just toiling away to do what? To go to a strip mall and buy bullshit junk that they don't need that just gets tossed into the ocean. We're wiping out our biosphere. There seems to be no endpoint that we're working towards. We have no goal, no common objective as a society or as a species. We're just sort of like doing it. And we're hoping that the billionaire that comes along next is going to be the billionaire who like solves it and delivers us some kind of a better world. And we've sort of turned over the control of our future to a handful of billionaires, and we just seem to think that if wealth is tied to intelligence, these clearly are the most intelligent people, so we should let them make all the fucking decisions. And I just think that's wrong. And I think instead, it makes a lot more sense for us to start to come together around some basic core fundamental ideas of how we would like to live that are largely true for all of us, right? Like, it would be nice to live in a world where we don't have to chase the dollar all day long, and we can focus on personal enrichment and personal education and relationships and exploration and understanding our place in the universe, much like the world of Star Trek. It's sort of a utopia. And I think that there's a way that we could get there, but we have to create that awareness in people and start to bring that conversation to the fore to get us there. My personal experiences, I've seen strange lights. I've seen things that I can't quite explain. I don't know whether those were UFOs or UAPs. I can't honestly say. I had a very specific, very personal experience that I won't go into super detail on, but in Peru a few years ago, I participated in an ayahuasca ceremony, and during that ceremony, I experienced telepathic communication. I was given information and had a precognitive event of something that would happen years and years later. I was shown my son before he was born. And then years later, at a time when I was, my wife and I were told we couldn't have kids. And years later, we had a child, and that child was the one that I saw in my vision. Um, it rocked my world. It completely changed my perspective on reality and gave me an entirely new way of looking at things. And I also noticed that after my ayahuasca experience, my personality started to, over a period of years, started to change in a good way, in a very good way. I found myself to be much more empathetic and much more focused on things that actually matter in life. And a lot of the things, the rat race stuff that I had been chasing up until that moment, sort of to fade away in the background, and I became less focused on that. So it was sort of a turning point in my life. And once I understood what it meant to communicate with an intelligence that is not human and receive information and be able to bring that information back to my day-to-day life and apply it to my regular world, I realized that there was a bigger reality out there that I didn't quite have a handle on. And that's what kind of got me focused on all of this stuff. Question number 5, what do you think is actually going on? What's happening here? I'm with Richard Dolan, and Richard Dolan has suggested a number of times that what we're seeing right now is a faction of people within the military-industrial complex. Now, before I go there any further, what's the military-industrial complex? Military-industrial complex is really simple. When the United States military wants to go somewhere and blow the shit out of it and do some damage, we need weapons to do it. The military-industrial complex is the corporate apparatus that exists to serve the military. They produce weapons, they produce technology, they produce bombs and guns and all the things that aircraft and aircraft carriers and all these things that you see when you look at the military, they're made somewhere. They're made by people. The military-industrial complex are those people, and that's what they do. Who works for the military-industrial complex? Mostly, it's people who worked for the government or worked for the military at one point or another, and then rotated out into civilian world. And so there's this sort of like uncomfortable gray area where in the civilian world, you have all these people that are quasi-military, quasi-government. They kind of came from that world. They've moved over to the civilian corporate world where there are far less restrictions on what they can do. And they're able to play in a much larger sandbox with a lot less oversight. And essentially, that's what the military-industrial complex is. And within that, there has been a faction of people in the last few years who have started to come forward, and they have fallen out of love with the whole idea of secrecy around this issue. I believe, this is my own personal opinion, that a lot of those people, whistleblowers like David Grush and others, are doing so. David Grush has said this as much on the Joe Rogan podcast, that this is a generational thing, that his generation... I'm in my early 40s. I look back at my life, and the war in Afghanistan took a lot of friends of mine from school, and if the ones that made it through didn't come back the same, and a lot of people look at that war as being a $4 trillion waste of time and human capital and resources. And the people who are coming forward now are saying, like, we're looking around at the world, realizing that this is absurd. We're spending trillions and trillions of dollars to fight stupid wars over nothing. And yet at the same time, we're looking back at our own people and we're saying, we don't have any money for healthcare. We don't have any money for college education. We can't give you anything to retire on. We can't provide you any economic security. We really can't do anything about all of the problems that are facing you every single day. But we have trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars to spend on ridiculous, stupid wars and weaponry. And people are seeing a big disconnect here, and they're going, this is ridiculous. And these are the same people that we're trusting to reverse engineer alien technology. So the faction that's coming forward now is saying, enough of this. We need to let some of this information out. We need this technology to solve real problems that human beings are facing right now in the here and now. And we got to break this thing. We've got to break this machine. And that's what they're doing. So I believe that's what you're seeing. And you're seeing the legacy program, the people that are not coming forward, that is still largely in control of much of the media. That's you, the Central Intelligence Agency. they are pushing back. And so you're seeing the regular media not really wanting to cover this because they are in the pockets of the Central Intelligence Agency. I believe that that's been pretty widely established fact for a long time. And that's playing itself out. It's Congress lost control of this thing. I don't if they ever even had control over it years and years and years ago, back after the Roswell crash. This technology was recovered. It was given to private corporations. They've had 70 years to make progress on the back of this technology. And during that time, they've been taking larger and larger and larger and larger increases. The defense budget has swelled to $800 billion. And that's how much we spend on defense in our country, more than the next 10 largest military budgets in the world combined. We spend more than that on our military. And who are we fighting? Like, what are we fighting for? Did you ever stop to think, like, all of this aircraft carriers and nuclear weapons and warheads and F-35 fighter jets, it's $1 trillion fighter jet, by the way. If we just took that money, let's just take half, take $400 billion a year. Go start here. Look around. What do we need? We need free energy or cheap energy. Let's build some thorium reactor nuclear plants. Let's build some desalination plants. We're going to spend $400 billion a year trying to make the world better. Let's just go around and try to improve lives and make things better. Well, what if we just did that for a decade? Would we even need to fight? Maybe not. So anyway, that's sort of a long-winded explanation of what I think is going on. I think that's what's playing out right now. And I think that ultimately truth is going to win. Information wants to be free. Our best scientists in the world, then they know that the next 25 Nobel Prizes are behind this technology. The next $100 trillion is behind this technology, and people want to get their hands on it. So sooner or later, it's going to come out, and hopefully sooner rather than later. So that's it. Top 5 questions I got since starting the channel. I hope that you enjoyed it. Please, if you like this video, if you like this channel, like, subscribe, and join if you want to support me financially. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you again for watching. Thanks for sticking with me. I'm probably going to disappear for the rest of this year, and I'll see you again in January. Until then, keep looking up.